This is a more challenging question, and this is particularly if you are working in a school where you're aware of issues with the parent-carer relationship. And what we're looking to do here is think about how can we flip that, how can we reverse it. So look for the good is the first thing I would say. I very often speak to schools who will tell me about the really negative feedback or input that they've had from a very small number of parents. And they often don't tell me about them, the 95% of parents who are perfectly happy with how things are, who are vocally enthused and overjoyed by the way that things are. We are very good at focusing in on the negatives. The negatives matter and we need to think about them and how to respond to them, but it's really important that we think too about the other 95%. So look for the good, look for what's working and consider how you can build on that. Reflect back on the last year or two and think about whether there were any times when parents did actively engage, where you did have the impact that you wanted, and try and understand what is it that worked well there. So I worked with a school last year who found that the one time when parents and carers would reliably come into the school was if they ran some kind of Christmas event. So we took that and we ran with that and we said, okay, well, let's make the next Christmas event the biggest and best Christmas event ever. And let's just interweave some of those important engagements and interactions and messages as part of that event. So have a think about what's working well and how can you use those as opportunities, as ways in with your parents and carers. Equally, do try and understand what's not working and see if we can try and flip that. So going back to those vocal few parents who are perhaps really loudly unhappy with your school, if instead of running away from them, you run towards them and you listen to them, you allow them to feel heard and you ask them to help you and say, I'd really like your support here. I recognise that that you're not happy with how things are. Can you help us to think about how to change this? If you're able to engage them in that way, and it's not easy at the beginning, but if you can engage them, they will become, instead of loud and unhappy, sometimes loud and happy. Sometimes the people who were most disparaging and most difficult, and loudly so, will continue to be loud, but with their views flipped. This can work both face-to-face and also online. So I worked recently with a school who had an issue on Facebook. There was a group of parents on Facebook who were just constantly sharing really negative viewpoints about the school, which was difficult for all sorts of reasons. So what the school did in response was they just bombarded their Facebook page with positivity. They bombarded it with stuff that the parents couldn't possibly disagree with. They specifically shared about activities and things that the vocal minority parents' children had been involved with. And what they found was it took a little while and quite a bit of perseverance and a lot of being very happy and positive all the time on Facebook. But after a while, those parents who had been the ones who were posting really negative stuff about the school, they became the ones who were the first ones to like and share and comment on the positive posts that were coming through from the school. It didn't happen overnight, it was an evolution. But again, those vocal minority remained a vocal minority, but their view was flipped and they became positive ambassadors for the school rather than people who were vocally unhappy about it. So have a think about who your potential ambassadors are. Think both about those who are more difficult and challenging and run towards them, but then also think about if there are any other voices within your parent-carer community who you think people would really value hearing from, whose opinion matters more widely, and think about if you can proactively try to engage some of those people. If there are people, for example, within your parent-carer community who have a really good standing within your local community, can you court them and get them on board and try to encourage them to encourage others to engage with the school? Can they lead other parents to you? And then finally, we can think about our more general day-to-day interactions with parents and carers and about whether we can perhaps kind of flip the narrative here a little bit as well. So for many families, the only time that they hear from school is when something bad has happened. And when we see our phones ring, we suddenly think, oh no, what has my child done now? What if instead, for those parents, when they saw the name of the school come up on their phone, they thought, oh great, what has happened now? And they expected good news. Can you hunt for the good and find positive reasons to communicate with families, particularly those that you're struggling to engage with, particularly those whose children really need that additional parent and carer input and that you're not getting it at the moment? If you go to them regularly with good news, with positive ideas, then you begin to reframe that relationship, and then you start to build some more solid foundations from which you can flourish and grow. So think here with your team about how can we switch things around. When we think about the parent and carer engagement, what's not working well? Where are the negatives here? And how can we try and turn them on their heads? What would that look like? If you found this video helpful, you might be interested to learn more about YouCan. YouCan is our new, ever-growing, on-demand video CPD service for schools. Each course is made up of a series of modules just like the one you've just watched. Each module is designed to be highly practical with ideas that you can use right away. We're growing our library of courses every week to meet the demands of our subscribers. There's a huge wealth of training that you and your colleagues will be able to access if your school subscribes. Our short, practical videos make it easy and enjoyable to learn, so you can do anything you set your mind to.